Hi. You're going to bounce along with me here as I'm on a walk. And hold on, I got to put my other glove on. Until the sun sets, you can see me. Which of course it does at like 4:30, which is right now. So anyway, we're going to talk about looking for peace in all the wrong places because, I just got off the call with someone and the people that I talk to are super stressed most of the time, right? And they're like spinning and I'm no different than this. A lot of us do it. Hi. And so we're spinning and we're stressed and we're anxious and we're working ourselves up and the body's really stressed and we're having panic attacks and anxiety attacks and feeling like we can't get ahead of ourselves. And even if that's not happening physically, maybe we're doing it in the mind. We feel out of control and like we can't get out of a situation we're in. Why can't we get out of this money situation or this job situation or this relationship dynamic, right? And you can feel what happens when you even think about these things. We start to tense and we're like, oh, let me just break away. Like, let me just get away from all of this. Let me get away from all of this. Just be somewhere quiet. Like if I could just get rid of these people, this situation, this circumstance, this pressure, if I just had more money, more time, more love in my life, better opportunities, like I would just be better, right? And so we have this desire, and it's a strong desire, to cut everything out and to put it all away, push it all away. And unfortunately, it may work for a little bit, but it doesn't work in the long run because we're looking for peace in all the wrong places, right? And it comes from within. And the funny part about it is that when we're spinning out, what's the last thing we do? Breathe. What's the last thing we do? Take a deep breath. What's the last thing we do? Connect to the body, put our hand on the body, breathe. We're in the mind. And the mind is like, it's not safe. We can't do that. We can't stop now. Like we don't have time. We can't, don't be ridiculous. We can't do something that's simple. And would you just stop? And I have to be in this hyper anxious state. And it's like, no, we get to breathe.
Hello.
Hi. We get to pause and we get to breathe. And this is the power really of your life. It's the power to choose in those moments to breathe and to find that within you. And this is it. Like right now, you're watching this video and you might be annoyed that I'm bouncing. Maybe my microphone's rubbing on my coat and you're annoyed by that. Maybe you're annoyed by the background. Who cares? This is life. Life is going to have a lot of things that are annoying and disturbing. And yet in this moment, you can choose to take a deep breath into the belly. Hand on the belly, right? You can take a deep breath right into the belly right now and choose to find peace within you. You can choose to take those breaths until such time as you feel still and calm. And on the way to still and calm, you might discover panic, you might discover anger, you might discover shame, you might discover sadness, and you can breathe with those too. And what we do is we feel them. We might, if we do choose to spend a moment inside breathing, we feel those and then we're like, oh, gotta get out of here. Pull the plug, right? What's that term we use? Abort mission, like abandon ship. Let's get out of here. I think I'm hungry. I think I need to text somebody. I think I need to switch this. I think I'd rather yell at so-and-so. I think I need to get away from everything. But take it from me as somebody who's literally sold off everything in her life, quit her job and moved to a small mountain top in New Zealand. I was still there. And so even though I got as far away from everything that I possibly could, guess what? I took myself with me and the problem didn't stop. There were fewer inputs living on a mountain in New Zealand, but the peace still had to come from within. And I'm not saying I found it there. I find it every day, right? We find it every single day because every single day we get to face choosing again. Every single day we get to face choosing, sometimes multiple times a day. And if we're saying to ourselves, well, I don't have time to take a breath. I don't have time to sit down. I don't have time to relax. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to eat healthy. Then guess what we're really saying? I don't have time to choose my life. right? And if it was true that time determined everything, if it was true that your schedule determined everything, if it was true that external circumstances determined everything, then everybody would be just like you, but not everybody is. Some people feel differently. Some people are having different experiences. Some people are living differently. And this hit me like a ton of bricks. Because some people, in the exact time every day that I have, managed to meditate, managed to work out, managed to eat well, managed to run huge businesses, managed to help engage in world problems, managed to volunteer, managed to have families, right? Other people do very different things with their days than I do, which means I must be making a choice somewhere in here, right? And so every day I now face the decision, do I meditate? Do I not meditate? Do I breathe? Do my breathing practice? I mean, obviously we're breathing. Do I breathe? Do I not breathe? Do I take the time it takes to make healthy food, or do I not? And some days I get it, like we're traveling, or like some days just go sideways and all of that. But a day going sideways, just like this video bopping up and down and my microphone potentially rubbing, like they don't have to really take you off course, right? It doesn't have to stress you out. You can still feel that peace within. Because it's not the circumstances that are causing it. Because if it was the circumstances that were causing it, then anytime you were in circumstances that weren't like it, you would feel it. But I'm gonna bet pretty much my entire life on the fact that if you got alone and you were sitting by yourself, you would feel less at peace and not more, right? You might feel momentarily calm, but I bet you'd either check out and fall asleep or watch TV or feel really anxious. Because if we're feeling like the world's closing in on us and we can't catch a breath, then the solution to that is from within. Now, I'm not advocating that we stay in unhealthy situations, right? Like, obviously, if you're in abusive situations, if you're in really unhealthy situations, get out of them. But we find the strength to get out of them by tuning inwards, right? We find the strength to change our circumstances when we realize and discover that we have the power to choose them. Meaning, we have the power to choose how we feel inside us, inside ourselves, and thus we have the ability to choose what will and won't work in our own lives. This is getting a little all over the place. But my point was that I'm always amazed with every single person that I talk to, and myself, right? I'm amazed in myself when this happens, but all my clients are always amazed that we breathe together. We do a few breathing practices and we're like, oh, well, now I feel better. All that pain is gone. All that tension is gone. All that stabbing, throbbing pain is gone. It's like, well, how'd you get here? Well, I just breathed. Yeah. We just breathed, right? And, yoga is quite clear on this. Yoga says that if there's any dysfunction in the breath, then there's dysfunction in the body or the mind. And that all disease comes from a dysfunction of the breath. And if the breath is free-flowing and spontaneous and healthy, and the belly is soft and mobile, then soft is not quite the right word. Taut, I suppose. Not tense, but responsive. If the belly is mobile, but not tense. Oops, what is all this on the floor? Moss. Then we're in perfect health. And that to me is an indication from thousands of years of study that I didn't have to do, I can benefit from, that the breath is pretty important. And I see it over and over and over in myself and in my clients that all we have to do is breathe. And lo and behold, it's there for us all the time. I just read a quote in a book called The Psychology of Yoga or something like that. And by Vivekananda, Dr. Vivekananda. Anyway, I'm reading in this book, and the quote was something to the effect of that enlightened masters across time have said that we're all at the highest level of consciousness, but we're at different levels of awareness. And so the only difference between, say, you and me and somebody who's living in an enlightened state is that you and me are focusing on the problems of our minds. And you have to stop when I'm crossing the street. Okay, you watch me almost get myself killed. So the difference between you and me and those people are that they're more aware. They're more aware. They've chosen to change their awareness from the problems of our lives, problems like my body hurts, I'm anxious, I've got all this drama going on, and choose to shift their awareness to something else. But the consciousness, we are already there. And I've always wondered this, like, why is it that when we take a few breaths, we slip into this beautiful peace and we have the knowing? And to me, this quote really answered it. It's like, oh, because we're already there. We're already living at the heightened state of consciousness. All of us have that same heightened state of consciousness. It's like the uber soul, right? It's like being tapped into universal consciousness, and all of us can get there right away, just like that. It's just we're choosing on a daily basis to put our awareness in places that don't feel good. And when you take a breath, when you choose to focus your awareness on something that does feel good, when you make a conscious choice, conscious choice to do something expansive, calming, soothing for yourself, now you open up. You start to tiptoe towards that higher state of consciousness, right? You start to open up the aperture of your awareness to be in that space. And so it is always available to you. This peace, inner peace, is always available to you. It is always there, right? I was talking at the Authentic Peace Retreat, and you can watch my whole video on this of what's authentic peace. It's in the video files here on this page. I was talking at the Authentic Peace Retreat, like it's just like we can see the stars because there's the darkness. Like the aberrations that we feel, like the stress, the strain, the ups and downs, the up and down of life that we feel is there because there is an underlying peace. They go together. It's just that our awareness is focused on the stress and the strain and the aberrations, not on the underlying peace. But that means that all you have to do to tune into that state of peace and be in that state of peace is to change your perspective, to change your awareness and what you're focused on. Like, really let that sink in. Let that sink in. That means that all the things that you want, peace, harmony, inner peace, more harmony, joy, right? Feeling content, fulfilled, all of that is a choice away. Like, really let the power of that sink in. Like, that's huge. That's huge. That means that just by shifting our awareness, just by shifting what you're focusing on, away from the sort of highs and lows, right? The ups and downs, instead of taking them so seriously, instead of going along for the ride and focusing on them as the thing that needs to change in order for you to find the stillness, realize that the stillness is the fabric that is holding that up and down, right? The fabric that's behind it. Just like the sky is behind me. The sky is holding all of this. There is space between me and this camera, me and this tree, me and this house. Oops, there's the house. There is space between us. And the space between us is what allows us to be defined. Do you get that? The space between us is what allows us to be defined, which means the stillness within you is the space between the stresses, between the dramas, between the ups and the downs, and the highs and the lows that allows you to see them. So you don't have to go searching for inner peace. It is already there. It is the majority. The majority of this world right now is this, empty space, right? There's a tree here and there. There's a house there and there. But this is empty space. And it's the same thing. You are completely filled with peace. And there's a few blips here and there. But guess what we're focusing on? The blips, right? And so we think we have to get rid of the blips in order to find the peace, but we don't. All we have to do is tune back into the peace, and there's one really, really quick way to do that, and it's to breathe. And so if you're not making that choice on a daily basis to shift your perspective back to the space between, the space that is your natural state of peace, it is who you are, then it's time to get real, right? It's time to get real with yourself. Because you are making that conscious choice. You're making that conscious choice to look at the aberrations, not the fabric. And you're making the conscious choice not to bring yourself back to that state of truth. And it's as easy as breathing. It can be as hard as having to untangle lots of gunk in the body. It can be as hard as needing to bring in a therapist or work through some bigger issues. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to oversimplify anything, right? I've been to therapy, I've been to rape counseling, I've been to every possible physical therapy, and I continue to see them all. Oh, hey, Eloise. I continue to bring in those modalities into my life because they're all valuable. Oops, turn it around. They're all valuable, right? So I'm not trying to belittle it or make it oversimplified. My point is purely, you get to make a choice. You get to make a choice about the stress level that you bring into your life, because the peace that you're seeking is not something that's going to be given to you. Just like the happiness you're seeking is not something that's going to be given to you, right? If it was, if that were true, there would never be a single circumstance or example of somebody who was like in jail finding peace. But there are. I watched a video today of a woman who was in jail. Her husband got executed. She was next up and found incredible inner peace, right? There are examples of people in concentration camps who find a peacefulness and joy in life. It's the whole basis of the movie. And now I'm blanking on the name. It's in Italian. A Beautiful Life, whatever it's called, right? So like, there would never be an example that's different than what we think if our external circumstances really did determine. Oh, good, it was inspiring. Yes, if external circumstances really did determine our ability to find peace and joy and freedom. So clearly something else is going on, which means I bet we have a lot more power and capacity and capability than we give ourselves credit for. And I bet we have a lot more power than we're accepting on a daily basis. And by power, I mean the ability to choose, right? The ability to choose to breathe. The ability to say, if like Bill Gates can spend 5 minutes meditating, I bet I can too. He's a busy guy. I look at people like the Dalai Lama. Did you know the Dalai Lama's daily schedule is online? And it's fascinating. His daily schedule is fascinating. Did you know he meditates from 3 a.m. until like 8 a.m.? And I'm like, wow, the Dalai Lama's a busy dude. I mean, I feel busy. I feel busy all the time. I feel like a lot of people want my attention. But the Dalai Lama, like a lot of people want his attention. He's like, no, I'm going to meditate for 5 hours. Of course, that's what he's known for. But still, you get my point, right? He sees people for 3 hours a day. I'm like, wow, if the Dalai Lama can get all that done and see people for 3 hours a day, clearly I'm making some different assumptions. And that's the point here, right? Is we're making assumptions about what's possible, but really, we can make a different choice. We can make a different assumption. And if you want to feel a state of peace within you, sorry, it's getting dark. If you want to feel, but you don't need to see me to hear this, right? You know this already. It's already within you. It's already within you. I'm just pointing it out. If you want to feel a state of peace, then all you've got to do is shift your perspective, right? Shift your perspective to the peace that exists. Shift your perspective, your focus. It's really the obsessive focus away from the problems, because they're not problems, they're just life. They're just life expressed through experiences, to the stillness that's holding the problems, and breathe there. And you know what? I want you to breathe there when it sucks, and I want you to breathe there when it's uncomfortable, and I want you to breathe there when you're crying, and I want you to breathe there when you're scared, and I want you to breathe there when the last thing you want to do is sit there and breathe there. Because guess what? Every time we go to find stillness, we distract ourselves from it. And so to say that we want stillness and peace and this beautiful feeling of like, oh, peace, bullshit. Pardon my language, but like bullshit. Most of us get to that place and run. Because the number one thing that stillness does is it shows us all of our own fears and flaws. And so I want you to sit there, because peace is sitting there anyway, right? Peace is not being scared of ourselves, for being human, for being imperfect, for being ashamed. All of these beautiful feelings, and I make no qualms about my desires to move in the realm of ecstatics, right? Who find all of life to be ecstatic, because all of life is sensation. And that means life is constantly squeezing you and showing you life, right? And that every squeeze of emotion, good or bad, is God communicating, right? Every pain in the body is God saying, hello, here's life. Breathe it in. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, when we turn away from the bad stuff and then say, well, I need to find peace, so let me push this away. Guess what? We're just causing more aggression because we're pushing things away. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm usually so good with my language. I apologize to your son. I did mean bull poop. Total bull poop. I'm so sorry. I will sit with this later. Right? That's what we're talking about. Like, things come up and we're like, oh, I'm so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so this. And we breathe with them. Because those are the things that pull us out. Those are the things that pull us out. And it's easier to think, it's easier to like put up a harsh wall that says like, well, if you can't take it, then you blah, 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 right? It's easy to put up that wall of defensiveness. Tell him, nope. Wait, can he read? Yeah, Carrie's got her own brood of kids. Oh, that's hilarious. I'm not even going to say it out loud. But this is what I mean, right? Like, it's easy to put up that wall of defensiveness that's like, yo, well, if you don't like it, then blah, 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 right? It's harder to be vulnerable. It's harder to feel that and be like, oh, wow, I'm a little embarrassed. Like, let me look at that. Does that choice align with who I am? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Was I trying to, like, act in a certain way? Or was I just leaning on an old habit? Like, or is that really who I am? Is that important to me? Is it not? Like, that is the tough stuff that we sit with. But that's where the peace is. The peace isn't in just putting up the wall that's like, well, I guess got to take it or leave it, you know? Sometimes that is where the peace is, but it's not all the time. And so I really invite you to breathe. Just realize that we have a choice. Sorry, it's like creepy as a woman walking alone when a car like stops next to you. Good opportunity for me to breathe. I felt all my nervous system turn on just then. You know, it's just every single day when you get the choice to meditate or not meditate, or exercise or not exercise, or eat well or not eat well, or drink more water or not. That is the practice, because that is you choosing how much control you have over your life. And if the answer every day is I don't have time, then guess what? You are not having control of your life. And you're not going to feel any better. So I don't care per se at this moment in time if you do it or not. This isn't like pressure to act perfectly, right? But realizing that daily argument that we have with ourselves, that daily should I or shouldn't I, is actually where we are negotiating how much agency we have over our lives. And that conversation is incredibly powerful. And when it comes to something like your inner peace, that conversation is where this is happening, right? That conversation is exactly where this is playing out. And so it's more getting right with ourselves on that level, right? Like, what is the right thing for you? Don't meditate just because everybody says you should. Do it because it's something you want to do, right? Like, but that pressure that we put on ourselves, that shame that we carry, that excuses that we create of why we didn't and why we can't, like, that is not taking agency, right? Agency is saying, like, I'm either going to do it or I'm not. Agency is saying, well, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing for me, even though I'm absolutely terrified that means I'm going to miss out on something. Somebody's going to be mad at me. I'm going to fail here. And sitting there for all those minutes clicking by, going, every minute I sit here, I should be doing something else. I'm pretty sure I'm failing, but I'm pretty sure this is what I need to be, where I need to be, right? Because all the other stuff, it's just made up. It's just made up. And like, that is the daily practice. That's the daily practice for me, whatever it is for you. But for me, it's that choice. It's that choice of do I really get to do this? Do I really get to breathe? Is it really safe for me to take a pause here and say, actually, I'm going to choose this? Bark, 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 bark. It's actually not at me. It's about the dog in front of me. People pleasing is a form of self-sabotage. I completely agree. Actually, that's going to take me on a little tangent. I'm not going to get into it, but I'm not a giant fan of the concept of self-sabotage. And it always actually comes up in this context of inner peace, which I think is really interesting. But the reason I'm not a giant fan of self-sabotage is because I truly believe that everything that we do or have done was for a reason. So that we have habits in place that may now be outdated, but they were habits that were at one time a gift to ourselves. And so the idea that habit that once was a gift is now some sort of like negative, damaging thing. I don't love it because it implies that we have some part of us that wants to punish ourselves. And that might be true from a personality perspective, but it also, like, to me, what it's doing is shaming me for habits that I actually picked up for a good reason. And I'd rather acknowledge that some part of me was trying to soothe myself, and some part of me was trying to do the right thing, and some part of me, for me, and some part, not all knowing right or wrong, but me right or wrong, and some part of me was trying to help myself, then, oh, you're such an idiot, you like have this habit that's hurting you. Why would you hurt yourself like this? So for me, there's more of a way forward if I think about it in terms of an outdated habit that I no longer need than a self-sabotaging habit. So, yeah, and not, it's such an easy phrase, and I throw around easy phrases all the time. You'll hear in other videos I talk about self-sabotage, but when other people bring it up, I'm like, oh, let me have the opportunity here to say that I personally don't believe in it in that form. But we all use these shorthand phrases, so I got what you meant. But I just love to take the opportunity to point that out, because I just think, for me, the doorway forward has been entirely through love and acceptance. Now, that's not true for everybody. I'm sorry you can't really see me anymore, but for many, many people, the doorway forward is through, like, you think I can't, watch me. And they really thrive on challenge. I personally thrive on acceptance and love. So even when it comes to like releasing negative emotions, for me, it can, when I first started this journey and I would like imagine negative emotions as like bubbles, bubbling up and out into the universe, I actually had to envision them as perfect. Like, anger, you are perfect. You have like the most amazing, beautiful anger that's ever existed in the whole wide world. It's just, I'm not really loving you. And how unfortunate that you would be somewhere where you're not really wanted. Like, I'd rather release you because you're totally perfect and you're awesome at being anger. By the way, well done. You really rock at being anger. So like, I'm going to let you go and be somewhere where somebody really appreciates how good you are at being angry. So for me, like, I had to really go into the extreme of the positive. And it's the same thing with the sabotage. Like, I've needed to, for me, look at all the things and habits and ways that I am and find the compassion in them in order for me to find a little looseness and space in negotiating them. Because when I was coming at them from a place of, why would you do that? You're against yourself. You're doing things that are not in your own best interest. I was just like adding more shame to myself, and I was adding more anger and aggression towards myself, which wasn't working for me. So that reframe has really helped me just find space and open the doorway towards releasing some of these habits that I didn't need anymore. And this is one of them. This power to choose is one of them. Because when I was coming at it from a place of like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you meditating? You teach meditation. Why aren't you doing it? Like, you stand for peace. Why aren't you creating it? Like, all that stuff. It wasn't getting me anywhere. But when I reframed it as like, actually, the power to choose this every day is really my learning about my own power in the world. And what I'm really saying when I'm saying like, okay, meditate every day, for me, this is just the example that comes up for me, could be something else for you, is that like, do I really get to choose how my life is? Do I really get to choose what's important? Do I get to choose how I spend my time? Or is my time allocated into responsibilities for other people and things that I don't get to choose? And so the entire negotiation around my power in the world and my relationship with God was coming down to stressing myself out about meditating every day. And once I realized that, it really brought home to me what was going on. And that this wasn't just guilting myself into doing something I was supposed to do in order to find inner peace. It was like, oh, this whole discussion is about the inner peace. This whole discussion is where I even gain entree into the concept of inner peace, because I'm sitting here arguing with myself and blaming myself for not being enough or not being good enough in the very context where I have the opportunity to discover that I actually have a lot of say in life, right? Or discover that I have choice. I hope that makes sense. I know as I'm walking and talking, sometimes it doesn't always come out that great. And now it's really dark in here, so out here. But I hope that helps. If you need a really simple takeaway, breathe. Just breathe. And if you feel like you don't have the time to breathe, or you can't do it, or your mind is like, I can't breathe right now, I'm too stressed out, or I can't breathe right now, I've got stuff to do, or I can't breathe right now, I'm too tense and panicky. Breathe. Breathe. Right? That is what's happening. We're convincing ourselves out of the thing that we most desire. Hold on, one of the things I say, it's my job to make the best possible decision. And I say, will the possible outcome provide peace? Because as it makes peace, it comes from peace. Beautiful. That's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. My job to make the best possible decision, and may the outcome be peace, because it comes from that place of inner peace for us. And it won't, because that's our agency. That's our gift. That is our gift, is that we get to choose. And this is, we're just going to go inside where there's a little light, but then I'll hang up. This is exactly how it plays out. And so it's not that we can choose right or wrong, it's that we choose, period. And that excitement that arises when we start to consider our power to choose. It's like, oh, can I do that? Can I really do that? Is anybody going to be mad at me? Like all of that, plus the excitement, the freedom that comes from knowing that when you do it, nothing horrible happens. Right? Oh, and then we choose more and more. Like, it is titillating. That is really the word for it. Like, it is titillating to see how much we get to choose and how incredible it feels. And to see sometimes it doesn't work out. And then those moments we realize, like, actually that had nothing to do with my choice. It was still the choice that was right for me. It's just somebody else is kind of freaking out. Not really about me. And that's kind of liberating too. So, long story short, breathe. Long story long, we covered a lot of stuff, which was really awesome. And it was so, so lovely to connect with you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I adore all of you, and it's just so nice to go for a walk and have company. So thank you. Have a good night. Mwah.